Yeah, so we're planning our trip down to Costa Rica from Chiapas. Chiapas is right here, southern coast of Mexico on the Pacific side. And we're going to go tracing down the coast here to Playa del Coco, which is the northern part of Costa Rica right here. And this is the Cape Index, windy.com Cape Index for thunderstorm activity. So I'm looking at the potential uplift of air particles, indicating potential unstable air mass. And we want to stay below 2,000 joules per kilogram. So if we leave Wednesday at 1600, which is the plan, from here, then we'll have something under 1,000, and then switch over to Thursday noon, and we're probably someplace over here. And now it's climbing up, as you can see, to about 1,600 joules per kilogram. All right, so if that's combined with rain, there's a slight chance of thunderstorm activity. If I go to the thunder page, you can see that there's thunder onshore, but none forecasted for offshore. But right here you can see a little bit of rain activity over here. All right, so the chances are for possible thunderstorm activity out here. If I look at the thunderstorm forecast with windy, you can see it's still onshore, and maybe right there's a little tick mark for thunder, but still clear offshore. So I think if we push offshore, off Guatemala, we should be at okay. Remember the big mountains right here in Guatemala, so that tends to create more uplift and more unstable weather. So I think we're safe here. All right, so going back to the Cape Index, right there, going down further the coast. So here's midnight on Thursday, and we're probably right around in here somewhere. So again, light conditions for the Cape Index. So let's go to Friday morning around 8. And we are probably over here near El Salvador, in this area. So right on the edge of the Cape Index graph here, we'll be out of it over here, so that's pretty good. So as soon as we're in the gray area here, we're out of it. Only 359 joules. So let's go to Friday at 1800, and it picks back up again. But again, it's slight. This area is a little heavier, so that's about 1,500 joules. And then Saturday morning we should arrive Playa del Coco down here, and that's it. So it looks okay to me. It's a risk worth taking if we wait until Monday or something to head down. You can see how different the Cape Index looks, and that's that would be a bad passage right there. Lots of thunder and lightning. One of the features of the Santa Cruz cruising boat is it has these deadlights in the hull, which you don't have on the racing boats. Also, it has finer appointments interior-wise. Doesn't have the removable plywood furniture of the old Santa Cruz 50. Everything here is nicely permanently mounted, of course. Nice furniture. Then it has this big Dodger, hard Dodger above. That's a very significant piece of gear there. All right, as you can see, the bilge is pretty shallow. It's got a lumber hole right there in the center, so not much good if it's heeled over, but it's only a few inches deep. So bilge pumps have to work, and work quickly if you spring a leak. The roll here looks good. A little corrosion in the wires, but it's working fine. And what I like about the Santa Cruz is that it's got this incorporated bilge pump outlet. So all you got to do is just connect the hose to here, and then boom, it goes. There's no hose to deal with on the other end. So it's interesting installation. I wonder why they did it that way. They could have saved money by not doing that, but I like it. It's good. So once you're plumbed to here, that's it. Everything should work. And then it's got an Edson stand-up pump, which is terrific. And pump away right there, just like that. That is pretty cool. That's the way it should be for an offshore boat. So I'm not sure why Santa Cruz had to display SC here, Santa Cruz, into the chain plate of all places. That essentially puts a big hole in the chain plate about this large. So the chain plate is really just this area here where my thumb is, and then over here where that is. Of course, they know what they're doing. I'm not faulting that at all. I just think it's a strange thing to do, to purposely weaken the chain plate by X amount in order to put your SC in there. So with the refrigeration in the tropics, it's always a challenge. It's a good idea to have these temperature gauges, mounted someplace. You can keep a good eye on the temperature inside the freezer and refrigerator. As you can see here, the freezer is a bit warm. It should be below 0 degrees. I have a temp sensor in here. Oops. I have a temp sensor floating around in here in the food, and I'm seeing about 23 degrees in the freeze box, and you can tell. I'll show you a graph of it. You can tell when the compressor turns off, the heat goes right up, and then the compressor turns on, the temperature goes back down again. So that indicates a leak in the box, or poor insulation in the box, and might be a combination of both of those. The compressors are over here. They're both together in this very tight spot, and they both are, giving off heat, obviously. This one's about 170 degrees, and that one's about 160 or so. I'm not sure which one's freezer and which one is refrigerator. But anyway, they're water cooled. You can see the water circulation in the hoses here. And that's not doing a very good job because the water outside in this marina is about 85, 90 degrees. So therefore, you lose some of that thermal advantage when you're in very hot water. And that's the downside to a water cool system. So this is really not well suited to the tropics and 90 degree water. It just doesn't seem to be very effective. So yeah, you should know what the temperature of your compressors are, or the space, the air temperature, and try to keep that as cool as possible. So underway, I would suggest for this boat, if I was delivering it, not doing it under assist, is I would just keep this lid open and let this air out and get some ventilation. We might do that anyway, depending on the temperature of the freezer. But always a challenge. All right, 800 amp hours of lithium batteries here, all very compact. You can see how much smaller they are than if you had, say, 4Ds. Take up all this space and beyond. So yeah, lithium, very compact, 800 amp hours. Very well designed system as far as I could tell. One of the things you always want to look for is washers, stainless steel washers on the outside of the lug. You never want a stainless steel washer between the lug and the terminal, whatever terminal that is. So the owner did this in 3D print. It's an amazing little panel there. And he did a CAD drawing of the bus bar, which is very, very expensive, solid copper. And he sent this design to China, and they built it for him, and they sent it back. So that's a pretty interesting thing to do. Very custom, right? You 3D print your own cover, and then you have your bus bar outsourced to China. But there it is. Things you can do if you have time, money, and opportunity. Right? So very cool. All right, so fuse links wherever you need them, and then intelligent sensors for, well, here's basically a relay switch that cuts off power based on what the sensor is showing here. All right. And if you have a lithium system, everything's very critical. You have a shunt here on the negative terminal side. This is for the smart. It's a smart shunt for the Vectron system. Very nice. And here, this is one thing I like about the Santa Cruz 50 series boats. They do a very, very smart job in terms of the plumbing on these. Make them simple and make them owner friendly, practical. and very efficient. So here's a sea chest system. Sea chests are great. Instead of having 12 different sea cocks around the boat, they have one sea chest. It has a flush mounted or flush mounting racing sea cock there, and here's your master strainer for everything, and it goes through this hose here and then splits off in this manifold. So you have all these manifold switches for various things like refrigeration, aft head, forward head, galley pump, and everything else. So a nice sea chest manifold system with valves for everything, and even including check valves here, so water only flows one way. And then you have your freshwater manifold system right here, including the water maker, supply lines, and so forth. That's very nicely labeled and mounted, very clean. Everything is very, very clean. Look how clean the bilge is. Well, that's mostly the owner. Then you have your pump here. I think that's a water pump. And then you have another pump over here. Not quite sure what that one is. Looks like a water pump. That's for the, that is a water pump dedicated to the water maker, I would imagine. All right, Santa Cruz does a really, really nice job on this stuff. I think this is a great idea. This is the owner's concoction. He put up this davit system, aluminum, very nicely constructed. Put solar panels up, and these are bifacial solar panels, so they work on both sides. So obviously the top is all flat and to the sun, but the bottom is also capturing the reflection off the cement and water nearby, which is a very feasible thing to do, I think, for cruisers on the water. So very nice. And since they left California, they haven't plugged in once, I understand. So they've been running this boat completely on solar power when it went at the dock, and with the help of engine power, of course, when they're motoring. This Starlink system is changing the world. I mean, it's a real game changer, especially for those who are mobile on RVs and boats traveling around. With this, you're connected pretty much all the time, anywhere, any place. And it's inexpensive, far more so than it used to be. Elon Musk has really changed the world. So now people can cruise and remote work. That's going to be a major lifestyle difference for a lot of people. So the way it works, so this is like a second generation phased array antenna basically. And it just, well, this one here had a servo motor in it, and it would tilt northward, depending, and also turn, so it would give you two modes of motion. What the owner did is he disabled the servo motor and just kept this thing flat, which is the newer mode of operation. So the newer ones, I think 4th or 5th generation, just mount flat parallel to the surface, just like this, and just point straight up. There's enough satellites up there that you're always in contact. So I just tested the download speed. I got 45 megabits per second, and the owner said that was slow. He usually gets about 75 or so per second downloading. Uploading, of course, less than that. I forget. I think I had like 4 megabits per second upload, and it's on all the time. It doesn't use much power. You can access it through any device via Wi-Fi. The initial price for this antenna was $400, and his service per month is about $60, he said. And it all depends on where you register it. So he bought this system in Mexico and registered it using a Mexican marina address. So he got the regional price for Mexico, which is $60. You buy this in the US, you'll spend more money for the device, and you'll spend up to, I think, $180 a month for the service. Anyway, great system though. It works perfectly, so you can go cruising, and the owner said that while they're underway, this thing works just fine. And the latency is very, very low. The client uses it for Zoom conference calls and stuff like that. So this is really a game changer. Very, very cool.